from Southern Maryland's weather leader. This is a JB Weather Report.
Hello and good, what are we, Thursday, Thursday afternoon at this point, or Thursday evening, really. I'm forecaster John Bordash with you here in the JB Weather Center, looking at all of the latest data and continuing to pull my hair out, trying to figure out kind of, a good forecast for us. But here we go. We got a lot to get into this evening, and we're going to be kind of working through all of it piece by piece. The first call forecast was issued earlier today, and we are looking at impactful snow and impactful ice that we got to get into the details of. We got a Futurecast model to get into, and if you can hear me, let me know that you can hear me, and I'm not just speaking out into oblivion. Now, I will say that the one interesting thing currently is that my little sidebar that normally has my incoming messages currently does not. So I can't actually. So if you have questions, I probably won't be able to see them. So we currently, I'm watching myself. But anyway, we will assume that all is good to go, and it looks like sound should be good, hopefully. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. Let's bring you on over here. And again, we talked about this yesterday. Our risk here of seeing winter weather is pretty, I would say certain. Things are looking pretty locked in, honestly, to see a pretty impactful widespread winter storm across the region as we move Saturday night going into Sunday. And I really do think the time is now to prepare. As we look at things evolve over the next 24, 48 hours, the forecast might change a little bit as we begin to learn more. And honestly, just since I've posted my first call forecast, which went out about 5 o'clock or so, we've had our evening model runs that have come in and have started to show, not necessarily changes, but just putting things into better perspective and kind of clearing up what we're looking at. So we will kind of dive into all of it. But I do think now it is time to prepare, as our graphic says. Before we even get to the winter storm, folks, we are looking at a cold blast moving in. And I don't think many people are paying attention to this Arctic blast we have moving in. But I don't genuinely think many areas in the mid-Atlantic will be getting back above freezing after today until the month of February. Now, that might sound dramatic because, this month goes until just about, 8 more days, 9 more days or so. But when we look at such cold air getting entrenched, it's going to definitely impact this forecast, but then also the cleanup when we look at a winter storm. Look at these wind chill values we have going into Friday night going into Saturday. We're going to look at temperatures tomorrow, probably max out in the 30s, but then we're going to look at northwesterly winds really ushering this Arctic air. And as that Arctic air begins to move in, temperatures Friday night into Saturday, they're going to bottom out in the teens for many locations with northwest winds between gusting upwards of 15, 20, 25 miles per hour, which will make it feel like we are below zero just about across just about the entire region. Cold weather advisory, these used to be known as wind chill advisories, but now our cold weather advisories are in effect for just about the entire region, including Southern Maryland, Northern Maryland, Pennsylvania, going over towards the Philly area. I think the mountains are the one spot that don't have this, even though they will be colder, but their requirement is a little bit different to actually see, to see those wind chill values, approach dangerous levels. They're used to the cold out there. Wind chill values as you wake up Saturday morning: -4 Leonardtown, -10 Winchester, -7 in Baltimore, -9 Lancaster, PA. It is going to be cold. Temperatures on Friday in the 30s, Saturday staying below freezing. And honestly, through much of the winter storm forecast, I don't think that we're going to be seeing temperatures that are going to spike much above freezing probably at all, at least for many locations. This one spot you may be able to do that will be down towards Salisbury and the lower eastern shore, but even that might be iffy. Let's get you on over to just an overview, and I showed you this yesterday. Genuinely, I do think that this is a pretty good forecast for what we got going on, and I think the European model was kind of onto it with this early trend, and it's kind of been dead on with what we with what we're looking at. An area low pressure is going to begin to move across the southern United States and will bump up against the Appalachian Mountains as we head through the day on Saturday. That area low pressure is then going to be forced to kind of die out because it can't go any further north with the high pressure, and it's going to die out and transfer its energy to form a new low on the coast. And I know that sounds complex, and my apologies that it does sound complex, but that's what we're looking at. And then that coastal low is what's going to take over. That is what's going to prolong this event potentially into Sunday night going to Monday morning. And that is what has allowed this forecast to shift. For those of you that were really tuning in to your weather apps or these other bogus weather pages that are promising you 18 inches of snow and a bullseye in southern Maryland and central Virginia 3 days ago, there's a reason we don't buy into that, because we don't know those types of details this far out. And honestly, that solution never really made sense to me. In my 12 and a half years of doing this, I've never seen a storm kind of act like that and to this magnitude. This solution makes a lot more sense to me. It is very difficult to get such a major winter storm in the mid-Atlantic without icing concerns south and east of I-95. And I think today that is the thing that has begun to come the most into focus is everyone will see snow, but that transition to ice southeast of I-95. Precipitation types with this storm, we're going to be looking at all snow northwest of I-95. But that area there in purple, that's this area that's likely to see snow, heavy snow, but temperatures allow for a transition to sleet. Eventually, it's temperatures well above your head, and I want to get into that here in a moment. And I think what might be helpful is, before we get too in the weeds with this, let's take you on over to Futurecast. This is the latest run of Futurecast, so this is going to look a little bit different than even what you see on the website, because this quite literally just finished coming in. This is Cedar Point Federal Credit Union Future View that's paused at 7 o'clock Saturday to start. Snow might already be falling across parts of central Virginia. I will say that looking at our latest future view model, it is definitely on the colder side of things, a little bit more of a southern solution, which I don't know if I buy, but it's going to be something that we're going to watch. But we're going to look at this area low pressure develop. And as it does so, and as it bumps up against those mountains, we're going to see precip by 9 o'clock begin to overspread parts of southern Maryland and really begin to overspread the mid-Atlantic after midnight. I think almost everybody should be seeing snow by about midnight, Saturday night going into Sunday. And right now, there is not even mixing on the screen. I think really between about 1 or 2 a.m. and about 8 or 9 a.m., you're going to have, what is that? Probably a good 6, my middle school students would say 6, 7, 8 hours worth of snow that could potentially be heavy at times. Look at where you're going to be having those darker shades of purple that develop. That represents that snow that could get heavy at times. Look at 8 o'clock. We're still looking at snow across the region. However, you then start to see, as we approach the lunch hour, that area of mix that's down to the south and east and starts to clip areas along the northern neck, the southern tip of St. Mary's County, getting on over to the lower eastern shore. We will stay below freezing throughout this event. However, air well above our heads will warm above freezing, which is what's going to allow this transition to sleet and freezing rain. As things stand right now, unless this storm were to shift another 50 to 100 miles northwest, I'm not really worried about this becoming a pure rain, which honestly, if you're not going to see snow, you might as well see rain, because who wants the ice? With that said, though, that area of wintry mix is going to begin to become an issue as we head towards the midday hours. And you can see that as we move towards 3, 4 o'clock, wintry mix kind of definitely setting up across southern zones. And again, this is one of our colder solutions. Our European model does not do this. It brings that mixing line well to the north and west, and I can show you that here in a few minutes. But our model, our in-house model, continues that area of wintry mix throughout the evening. So that's a prolonged period of sleet and potentially freezing rain, with snow holding on north and west. As we head into the nighttime hours, snow continues to fall, with maybe a transition back to snow for those southern zones. Our model here shows the potential for maybe a little bit of rain along the Atlantic beaches, which is something that we will definitely watch. I don't know if we're going to warm up enough for that to happen, but we shall see. Our model slowly wraps up this winter weather event as we head towards 4, 5, 6 a.m. on Monday, before things really kind of getting out of here by 7 o'clock. So the timing for this, I think, if you want a realistic, like this is what we're looking at, we probably see precip start region wide. Like I would definitely bet on that by about 11 o'clock Saturday night. We're going to see precip with us throughout the day Sunday. Mixing concerns start as we approach the lunch hour, and probably widespread mixing along in southeast of I-95 as we head towards the afternoon hours. What I want to show you though, like if we replay this, notice that everybody is starting as snow. I don't think that this is an all ice event, but it's that transition from the snow to the ice that is really getting some people worried, and I think potentially even rightfully so. So again, that area in blue, that is well northwest. These are our mountains, these are our hills, these are our valleys across the Appalachian and Laurel Highlands. All snow. This is the zone that, assuming that it's cold enough and you can pile up that snow a lot quicker, that you're going to see over a foot of snow. That area there in purple, that is where I think you transition to sleet. And let me show you what would cause that. Snow falls when you have air that is well below, or that is below freezing, kind of throughout the entire layer of the atmosphere. Let's say that extends about a mile or 2 miles up into the sky. Sleet will start to occur when there's just a little sliver of air that gets above 32 that is suspended well above our heads. There's a lot of cold air here at the surface. Typically, sleet will happen when we're in like the mid-20s. You're like, why is this not snow? It's because you have a small little thin layer that takes those snowflakes that initially fall from the cloud base and melts them into water. But there's enough of a cold pull that refreezes them and they turn into little ice pellets. From there, when you start to expand that pool of warm air that's suspended above our heads in the atmosphere, and again, warm, over 32, we see that melted snowflake into a water droplet. As that begins to fall through, it never really has time to refreeze because that area of below 32-degree temperatures is so shallow at the surface, maybe just 100 or a couple of hundred feet or so high up into the atmosphere. So that allows for that ice glaze to occur. So with that in mind, I think you get that small little layer, that we call that a warm nose, honestly. That small little layer of warm air, it probably pushes as far north and west as, let's say, York, PA, cutting through Carroll County, Frederick County, probably down through Leesburg, northwest of Warrenton. I think that's probably where you will transition, at least at some point, to a little bit of sleet. The snow, though, will still be heavy in this region, and this purple zone will likely see snow probably through about 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Saturday before a transition to sleet. That area there in pink, which encompasses almost all of southern Maryland, much of central Virginia, that's the snow to ice zone. That is where you will still get in on 6 to 8 hours potentially worth of heavy snow in the morning. However, as that warm air above our heads moves in, that allows for that mixing, not just with sleet, but also potentially freezing rain with heavy icing along the coast. With that in mind, let me get you into the snowfall forecast details. This is what we published earlier today. We will get into the ice forecast here in just a moment. Your eyes are probably going to go to wherever it is you're located, and since my sidebar isn't showing me comments right now, I can't actually answer the questions you have about what's happening in my backyard, or can I fly out on Sunday. With that said, though, I think we're looking at 8 to 14 inches as I think that's a pretty good baseline on which to work off of right now. Northwest of I-95, that cuts through much of central PA down towards Garrett County into parts of West Virginia. Again, I think that is all snow. That area there in blue, that is your sleet mix zone. And I'm very torn here with this forecast. There was a version of this forecast I made initially where the blue zone was like a 6 to 12. I'm very mixed here. And the reason why I'm a little torn on like pinpointing an exact total range is because this is dependent on how far north and west that area of sleet and freezing rain gets. I think it gets far enough north and west where you cut down on totals just a little bit, and you're looking at that 5 to 10 inch stripe to cut through Trenton, Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC, down to Charlottesville. There is always the potential for this forecast to definitely get increased, and you could make a case that I would buy that 8 to 14 inch zone probably needs to come down to the south and east a little bit, and you could make that case. 4 to 8 inches generally southeast of I-95 through much of southern Maryland. I think in southern Maryland, for many communities northwest of, let's say, California and Lusby, you're likely looking at least 6 inches of snow. I feel pretty confident in that. We'll see, but that's what I feel confident in. But a good 4 to 8 inches of snow. Southeast said they were looking more like a 3 to 6 towards the lower eastern shore, down towards southeastern portions of Virginia. The snow moves in after sunset Saturday, and I think everybody gets in on the heavy snow on Sunday. But it's going to be those southeastern areas that mix. And regardless of what you see, whether it's all snow or all ice or some mix of the two, significant impacts are likely. Look at this ice forecast. We're forecasting ice amounts of up to potentially a 1/4 inch across southern Maryland, primarily focused Sunday afternoon. That promotes widespread icing. Let me show you what like a zoomed in version of this. Typically, when your ice amounts are under a tenth of an inch, you're looking at just slick spots essentially. And this is freezing rain. When you can get that glaze of ice to be at least a tenth of an inch thick, up to about a 1/4 of an inch thick, that is where you can start to see some power outages, but you're definitely limiting the ability to travel. It is once you get over a 1/4 inch of ice glaze that we're looking at what we would consider an ice storm. You have more widespread power outages, more widespread trees snapping as well. And then over 1/2 inch of ice glaze, severe ice storm. I mean, you're closing regions down for a while. When we look at the 1994, like the ice storms of the early 90s, those were severe and devastating ice storms where you saw a period of let's call it 36 hours of just a consistent light freezing rain drizzle that accumulated over time up to an inch. That's going to cause issues. I don't know if we get to that level. And what you might be seeing online are you have some weather enthusiasts that post these freezing rain maps that show an inch of freezing rain ice in southern Maryland. Our models tend to overdo freezing rain potential, and freezing rain doesn't always accrete or accumulate the way that models think that they will. But that's something to definitely monitor. But again, going back to the ice forecast, I think it is the biggest deal across central Virginia, and I think that's where you could get up to ice storm criteria, at least 1/4 of an inch. I cut that off just before southern Maryland. You could make a case that deserves to go into this region as well. This does not account for sleet pellets, though, those ice pellets, and you will get some an accumulation of that to a certain degree as well. But ice is going to be something that we're going to continue to watch, and I think that this is going to be the part of the forecast that continues to get refined and probably going to add a little bit more detail into as to what exactly is that potential 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice accretion going to do. If we just summarize this into an hour by hour, it's a bit too far out for hour by hour, but let's just do general ranges. I think this graphic shows you kind of what the weather might look like, what you could expect northwest of I-95 there in the blue, and the gray is southeast of I-95, and then the general temperatures. Sunday morning, when we really start to see the snow kind of pick up, most areas are in the teens, and snow is becoming widespread by about 2 a.m. Sunday, and you're looking at snow that is heavy at times by 8 a.m. on Sunday. By 8 a.m., I think many areas have accumulated several inches. It is by Sunday afternoon that it's those southeast areas that mix with sleet while that heavy snow continues north and west. That sleet mix will continue to hold on and potentially even encroach northwest at 95 for a short period by Sunday evening as temperatures at the surface rise to the mid to upper 20s and the air above our heads much thicker of a base there of warm air. And things begin to clear up here by about 2 a.m. on Monday. So overall, precip is likely to move in late Saturday. And I think we're looking at the heaviest snow Sunday morning, the biggest ice concerns Sunday afternoon. I think most are definitely going to be achieving at least 6 inches of snow with this, with those areas northwest of I-95 that can hold on to that cold air the longest, looking at over a foot of snow. The ice impacts will be something that we're watching. This could very easily be a situation where we have a lot of snow on the front end and a lot of ice on the back end, right? I want to show you something, though, before we get too far removed from our main points here. Let me bring you on over. This is one of our programs here that helps to show. This is going to be a look at the American model, and I'll walk you through the time frames here. But what this model is going to show you as I zoom out is anything in blue is going to be your snow, or this purple color. The orange is sleet. This this pinkish reddish is freezing rain. Then your greens are rain. And if you can see it, it's this dark line here that represents your 32-degree line. So we are looking Saturday, probably about Saturday afternoon with this timestamp. Current temperature with that in Lexington Park is 20 degrees. DC is about 20 degrees. Harrisburg about 16. Hagerstown about 15 degrees. So let's kind of center ourselves and let's move this forward just a bit. And we can see that this model has snow beginning to move into the region. This is getting close to midnight. Temperature sitting around 20 degrees still. Freezing line is well to the south. And what you will notice is that the snow, yes, becomes widespread, but look at all that sleet well down to the south. Again, this is all sleet. And is this pink that would be that like ice glaze, right? That would be what would most people are going to be worried about. But this is getting about 4 a.m. on Sunday. We're not looking at much of that at all. This is almost all entirely snow. And you're getting some bands of heavy snow even down towards here in Fredericksburg, Lexington Park, down through the northern neck. This is 4 a.m. Let's get towards about 7 a.m. and then get on over a bit further here as we approach like 11 or so. You notice by 11 o'clock, what you are starting to see occur, and I don't know, there we go. You're starting to see some potential bands maybe of like heavier snows that are like setting up a little bit, right? You're also seeing some like dry pockets develop as well, and that's always a concern when temperatures are this cold. Temperatures at this point at 11 o'clock on Sunday, Sunday, DC sitting at 23, Lexington Park sitting at 22, Charlottesville sitting 23, and you have that area of sleet all the way down here to the south. Getting now into the Richmond area. And even with sleet, that mixing, these are still areas, I mean, if we're over here towards the Kilmarnock area, 28 degrees. That is not above freezing. Roanoke seeing sleet at 26 degrees. Danville getting down towards 15 degrees. I mean, Richmond, 19 degrees. That is what is going to allow for any precipitation that falls to be wintry in some form because that cold air is so entrenched. No, that's about 11 a.m. Let's move this forward a bit. Getting towards about 1, 2 o'clock, you see where that sleet begins to move up to the north, represented by orange. You also are going to start to notice as this storm really begins to get its act together and really starts to reform there off the coast. That as you pop your area low pressure here off the coast, you are throwing back a lot of precip into what is really cold air diving in from the south, or diving in from the north. You're getting a pretty large precip head with this storm. It's almost literally like a comma. Almost a little bit. But that area low pressure kind of setting up there right off of Virginia Beach. And because you have warm air warm moist air getting thrown back into cold, that warm air will override the cold, and that is why you are seeing an icing potential through this region. And that's going to be something that we watch. I think I told you I can show you my American model as well. It's or my European model just finished running. Let's get this all the way back and let's get on over to the European. For those looking at this map for the first time, DC sits right about there. So it's kind of like what should be anchoring you if that's what you're looking for. As we take a look though, tomorrow quiet at one point looked like maybe a snow potential. Doesn't look like that too much anymore, but you could start to see our storm progress here out of the south and begin to lift to the north. The initial track of this storm, low pressure here, it's trying to go a little bit like this, but it's high pressure 1, high pressure 2, high pressure 3. These are all working to block this storm from diving right into it. So that is why it's going to have to reform and try again out here. But it's these areas here in this purple color that represent your snow potential. That pink would represent that freezing rain. But as we push this forward, this is again your European model. This is 1 a.m. on Sunday. European model much slower. By 1 a.m., snow is barely getting into the local region. Let's zoom into the Mid-Atlantic so we can see this a bit better. By about 4 a.m., we see snow really moving in. 7 o'clock again, you're going to see about 5 to 8 hours worth of a thump of snow before you get to any. Ooh, that looks weird. Before we get to any type of an icy solution. Like there's your thump of snow right on the beginning because again, you have cold air driving in from the north. Let's continue this on. That's about 7 a.m., about 10 o'clock. This model gets icing in by lunchtime. And this is some heavy icing at times, potentially, from what we can see. Because you just have so much moisture getting ridden over. Like, generally, your freezing line in the atmosphere at this point looks like that. And that matches up almost perfectly with your where your mixed area is. If I were to show you temperature, like at the surface at this point, temperatures 26 Leonardtown, 19 DC, 15 Martinsburg, 12 degrees in Harrisburg. It's hard to get a 12-degree snowstorm. But if we start to go up in the atmosphere, watch what happens here. Let's actually take this over to, do I not get a Celsius option with surface temperature? Oh, that sucks. But as we go up a little bit in the atmosphere, this is looking at Celsius, but this right here, that like white demarcation area, that represents the freezing line, all right? So your freezing line at 1 o'clock on Sunday, according to the European, about maybe 500 feet into the atmosphere, so it's right about there through the southern parts of the Chesapeake Bay. As we continue to go up into the atmosphere, let's go above 925 to 850. I'm going to start showing you this, right? At the surface, I want temperature here at the surface. Your freezing line is roughly, I use a bit of a thinner marker here, is roughly like that, all right? So that's there at the surface. As we begin to progress upwards through the atmosphere, this is the lower levels of the atmosphere, which I guess I can use in like a purple. You're looking kind of right there. So areas like down in here, this is all potentially rain. Where it's not cold enough at the surface, it also is not cold enough as we start to go up through the atmosphere. At 850, notice how like that white line is really starting to move here to the north, and really starting to move north here. There you go. Like, we're starting to see the theme here, right? Your freezing line, as you go higher up into the atmosphere, begins to get a little janky. Here you go. At 700 millibars, though, I know that this just looks like lines, but this is why you're getting such weird outputs with these models. And much higher up in the atmosphere you go, it is always going to be much colder. Look at that, negative 41 degrees Celsius. I show all of this to you, though, to illustrate the point. It is going to be cold enough at the surface for snow. You're just going to have a small little thin layer of temperatures over 32 degrees that are going to help promote the idea of a switchover. The European model, look how far north. Look at this. I think this really tells the story well. Here at the surface, where you are looking, I-95 runs like this. You have Baltimore, DC, down here through Richmond. Look at all of this ice across central Virginia. And it is literally on the other side of that where you see that heavy snow, that deep purple, to represent areas of heavy snow. That's why I think central Pennsylvania sits in a good spot, which is why my students are very happy about it. 7 o'clock Sunday, icing continues. Icing on this model continues well into like early Monday morning, 4 a.m. before moving out of here. Our European model, if we look at a 10-to-1 ratio, this is just like a default output. I'm actually horribly upset with this, but it does less than 6 inches through much of southern Maryland. 4 potentially, where you get up over a foot out through here. Now, if we were to maybe say, let's take the Kuchera measurement, which accounts for different mixing layers and temperatures and all this stuff, this probably makes a little bit more sense. It just shows you, I mean, 6 inches represented there by your purple zone, kind of cutting through southern Maryland. So southern Maryland, for the most part, I mean, that's under 6, right? 12 inches on this model, kind of getting right up through there. So this is like a 6 to 12 zone. And then up here is your 12 to 18 zone. So that's what we have to watch. But the ice output here, it's go to freezing rain total. Look at that. This is probably what people are saying that is freaking them out. Like, if there genuinely in Southern Maryland was that much ice, 0.91 inches, like, this would all be a massive ice storm. It all would. I mean, look at over a quarter inch of ice. That would shut things down for a long time. I think that's a bit overdone. I think more of it will fall as sleet, and then what falls as freezing rain initially won't accumulate, but eventually will. But the general theme that you're going to see more ice the further south and west you head is going to be one that we continue to watch. All right, we are about 30 minutes in, and I've been talking nonstop, and I can't even see comments. So here's what we're going to do. So drop things up this evening. Now I did take tomorrow off from work to being here and tracking the weather. For those that are concerned about potential travel impacts, folks, you're not going anywhere Saturday at all. Am I concerned about power outages? To a degree I am, and that's going to be something I'm going to want to watch. I need to see more details about the ice forecast though before I really detail that. So I'll have more information on that probably tomorrow. As we start to look in at things. Power outages will be possible. Area schools will not be open Monday, probably not Tuesday either with this type of a system. But again, everybody's going to start off as snow, and I think you're able to get a decent bit of snow before any switchover. Let me come back here. Again, I'm forecasting a general 4 to 8, 5 to 10 across the region, 8 to 14 where you stay snow longer. And the real question is, how far north and west does that warm nose get? And start to change things over to a period of sleet and ice. So we will continue to keep you updated. I'll have updates throughout the rest of this evening, going throughout the day tomorrow, and then, of course, throughout the weekend. So you're going to want to stay tuned to JB Weather for the latest information. You can get my forecast on Facebook, on Twitter or X, Instagram, YouTube. Generally, the handles there are all about like JB Weather LLC or something. And then always on the website, jbweather.net. Thank you for joining me this evening to go kind of step by step through this forecast. There will be a shorter recorded version of this that gets published here in just a little bit. When I finish this, I'll need to get that recorded. And we will chit chat a little bit more as the storm continues to get near us. Have a nice and safe one, and please keep it tuned.